Good evening and welcome to the In Focus Election Special on WGTV Channel 11. Thanks for being with us. It's being presented by the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, Western Wayne News, and Whitewater Community Television. I'm Eric, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. Glad to spend another election evening with you. This is the primary election for 2024. We'll talk about some of the races that are up, and there are some large races that are up. 7 candidates running for 1 seat. In the 6th Congressional District. They will have an opponent in the fall. Some of the races ran uncontested. Some will, if they win tonight, that may be it for them, even though there is an election for the fall. So we'll talk about some of that as we go through this evening. But thank you very much for joining us, whether you're watching on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, or if you are watching on our Facebook stream. Thank you for spending some time with us this evening. Normally, across the table from me, I'm joined by Melissa Vance, President and CEO of the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, but I understand she's packing a bag tonight. The Chamber has a trip, and she's going to be on it tomorrow, so I am joined by Jeff Carter, representing the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce. Jeff with Bethany Theological Seminary. Thanks for being with us. Glad you're here.
It is fantastic to be here tonight. It's a great night to exercise our citizenship and in the vote, and then to watch with you the results come in.
We are happy to be joined by a gentleman who has gone through his share of commencements for himself and for family. Glad to have him back in the community. For those who may have known him when he was here before, we'll get him to introduce himself. Ken Chrisman, who has been in the position of Vice Chancellor for External Affairs for Indiana University East for what, have you hit 5 weeks now?
60 days.
Okay.
Strong.
Ken, glad to have you here.
Hey, I'm glad to be back home again, not just in Indiana, but in particular Richmond.
Talk a little bit about your background here for those folks who maybe met you when you were here before, didn't get to spend a lot of time with you, or we know people are in and out of the community a lot. For folks who don't know you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times we hear people, in particular college students, when they decide to go to college, they want to go away to college. And so I ran away from home a long time ago, back in the 80s, and went to Ball State University and figured out that at the end of the day, Earlham College was my best bet. So I'm an Earlham College graduate, and I've spent a good 35 years away from this community. As you probably recall, we worked together at WKBV, WFMG, also worked at the Palladium as a staff writer, and spent a lot of time in media. But I like to tell people that everything I needed to learn to be successful in life, much of that I learned here in Richmond, Indiana, how to treat people, how to extend human dignity to one another, and those basic things. And then some skills that I needed to do to be a good communicator. So I've worked for Indiana University in 3 stints. Worked for Purdue University, also Wilberforce University, enrollment management, student affairs, fundraising. I've spent time in Beverly Hills and New York City and helped a lot of people get into college. But at the end of the day, quite honestly, I wanted to give back to my community. And one of the ways I was able to give back is to not only to send money back, but was also to have some presence back, to come back to a community that's done so much for me. So I want to be one of those testimonies that says it's good to come home and to give back and to share. And Richmond's a great place, and I continue to meet wonderful people and have new brothers that I'm meeting and working and collaborating, and we're here to make a difference, and I believe that we are.
You've talked about being on a number of different college campuses. Talk about what commencement means, that time surrounding that for the students, and particularly as you've been here, as they've talked about being student-centric, this group of students, those that many of them graduated high school in 2020, their commencement from high school got taken away from them a little bit. Talk about what this one might mean for them as you've talked to some of the students.
Yeah, I kind of pondered the wordplay. Commencement is the beginning, but for a lot of students, it's the end. But commencement is the exercise, the culmination of that celebration, which is actually signals their graduation. And so this time of year, no matter where you look, you see a lot of people who are graduating, but we as educators also get a very strong thought about who's not graduating and who's not here. And so this gives us an opportunity to at least pause and say, you know what, these young people, young or old, adult, what have you, have done a great job and we're here to celebrate their success. We get to see their families, we get to see their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations. And so there are 2 points on a college or a university or a seminary or other campus, and that is a high points. And that's when people show up, and that's when we get to say goodbye. But we never say goodbye. We really just say so long till we see you again. And so commencement's our way to celebrate the achievements of people who have paid the price and done what they needed to do. And then we don't have commencement without great faculty, and in particular, key leading administrators. So it's higher education as a family. And so what happens at Bethany, that happens here at IU East and Ivy Tech, at Earlham College, we're all a part of one great system, but we do so in our own unique way. And this is our opportunity. This is our time of year to say, well done and congratulations.
Well, we share a mission too. I mean, transform individual lives that will then transform a community.
That's right.
And I'm lucky because I get to be at your commencement as we celebrate my daughter graduating from IU East.
Absolutely.
And then I get my own commencement where I'll preside there at Bethany. But you named a number of different institutions and different types of institutions that you've served. Mm-hmm. When you think about the students through the years, right, number of years, what would you say is consistent with students that are matriculating through higher ed? And what's changed?
Yeah, one thing that is consistent is I've never seen a person who wanted to truly fail. Mm. People want to be successful. They want to feel good about what they're doing. They want, most every student, I'm sure you hear this as a president, that I want to give back. I want to help people. And so that's consistent. The spirit of our humanity, the strength of our humanity, no matter what you see and hear, is still as strong as ever. And higher education is one of the ways we embody that. One of the other things that is hard work, determination, commitment, persistence, and all those things that we need to do to be successful in life, whether it's a college degree, whether it's a seminary degree, whether it's working at a particular job or what have you. We got to show up, we got to be relevant, we've got to do our job and be committed to excellence. And last but not least is we also get to see people when they're not quite there. Mm-hmm. And they need help and they need learning. And so I think that we get an opportunity to help people to be their best self.
So what's changed?
Oh, and the change factor is every 4 years, communication patterns change. Mm-hmm. And so, when the 3 of us went to school, we got mail and we applied. But when I think of the change piece, I think about how students communicate, how they listen, how they feel, and some of those things. But I don't know as much about the change in people as much as the change in our environment, the change in our world, the needs of our world. They're still uniquely the same, that people need housing, people need the ability to eat, they need health care, they need these different things. But we have so much of a diversity that I think one of the changes are the needs of our society. And the more we grow, the more we have needs. And so maybe not the direct answer, but I think the change has been that more than ever, the access to higher education is at an all-time high. So it's not about where you go, but it's that you definitely go, apply yourself, and find the right place in the right space, because our country and our humanity deserves for us to be productive and to be positive.
Talked about change. You were here at IU East when basically this building that we're in was the only thing on campus. You come back, there's multiple buildings, there's athletics. IU East has announced that they are adding another athletic team with men's volleyball next year. Talk about the changes that you've seen here, and with a new chancellor coming in just this fall, just in front of you, talk about where you all see IU East going and what you feel like this community needs to know about IU East now.
Yeah, that's good, because when I walked into this building, I thought, well, this is all that was here. And now I see the growth. And one of the things I will say about IU East, my experience at Earlham, I remember when Bethany came to campus and created its own unique niche and place and space and all these different things that we've done. One of the things I found that in every one of these institutions, and even IU East, large enough to grow you, but small enough to know you. And people are somebody. And so even though that we have had physical growth, We've also had growth of opportunity, growth of ideology, growth of the opportunity to bring in different faculty, to bring in different programs. And so the physical growth is important, but the intellectual growth and the ability of our region to become stronger than it was in the past are all critical factors. And then we're talking about voting tonight. Economics are a big part of the voting system. Where will we spend our dollars? Where will we make our commitments? And my brother and I can sit here and tell you that we're always having to do more with less, and decisions that are made for us when we've got a pretty good track record. And so our growth has to be tempered by the fact that we always, every day, have to make sure that we are serving and seeing individuals. And so this growth has been great. And I would encourage everybody, the number one thing in research that tells us that helps people to decide about where they will go to college or where they'll go to seminary or graduate school is the college visit. So come out, visit Bethany, visit IU East, visit Earlham College, attend a program like folk are doing tonight who may have never walked on a campus, and have that experience and be a part of the environment, because we're only as strong. My personal motto is no students, no jobs. If we don't have students, we don't need administrators. We don't have students, we don't need faculties. We don't need any. But as long as we understand that students need the opportunity and we're here for them, that's the growth we want to see. We want to see the human growth and the intellectual growth. And I think I can say here the spiritual growth that comes from understanding that our dignity is extended when we dignify ourselves by developing a knowledge base and learning other different things. And if I can say very quickly, we're investigating and looking. We're going to figure out some ways where IU East and Bethany can do some things that have never been done in this community, quite possibly. And it's not just because we're smart, but it's because we have great leaders. And I think that's key.
Yeah, well, it is, and to be able to think in creative ways, particularly when resources at times can be tight. But we do have this collective commitment to the individual student, but also to staff and faculty and to others, that we all are transformed in this process.
That's right.
So when you think about higher ed today, what is, in your estimation, the greatest gift that higher ed has to a larger community? Because there are some folks in Richmond that may never come on the campus of IU East or Bethany and Earlham, and yet there's a good that comes through education. What would you say is one of the benefits of living in a community that has 5 educational institutions?
Well, I think it's aspirations, it's dreams, it's ability to articulate a dream. And we know as educators, a lot of times people don't know what to dream or what to want. And so when you begin to look at national and international brands, I recently got the deep dive into your history and to learn about the human growth, to be able to be in a community that has these resources that are not just, quote, business, not just tangible or what we call assets, the depreciable assets. Humans are appreciable assets. And to be able to point to any direction of this community and know that you can go and better yourself, strengthen yourself, encourage yourself, and to pursue your dreams, we are the fuel stations for aspirations of people who may not have hope, who may not have a clue as to where to go or how to get there. Part of our job is not to just help somebody get a degree, but to help them to learn along the way. A good friend and mentor, former chancellor of this place, Charlie Nelms, Dr. Charlie Nelms, said it this way: a degree does not make you educated. It doesn't mean because you have a degree that you know what it is to live in this skin, to live in this experience. And so I think what our institutions do, and I keep using that word, but when you look at it and you study it and you look at it, dignity, a person should never walk out of someone else's space and feel less than. And I believe that our institutions help this community be more than even what it knows it can be. And so we have to be those hope stations, those places that not only help the people of Richmond, but one of the things I love about your institution as well, and Earlham and others, is we bring people from outside of our community.
Yes, we do.
To make contributions, not just intellectually, but spiritually, not just spiritually and intellectually, but from a business standpoint, and from a cultural standpoint. So a lot of different tentacles, but that's what a university, that's what higher education does. It provides a place for people to aspire, to dream, and to create what doesn't currently exist in their own lives.
And then one of our goals, so you add in the folks that are coming and the students that are being educated, some of our dreaming together is that how do we use Richmond Wayne County as the classroom, the incubator, where students are out serving and reflecting and learning together, and then coming back to their institutions, but coming back together and reflecting on what they're seeing and the difference that they can make. I mean, that's aspirational, and I think that has an economic impact as well, because then you get students that from all of our institutions that are really in the work of transforming a community for good.
Yes, and we were just talking earlier, so I had a chance to attend. Bethany just had, I don't call it an event, but it was a program. Events are one time, one off, you do it and you're done. But to engage Bethany, and I began to hear the human stories that came out of there. And sometimes people only know what they know because they interact, but there's just a residual value of helping people. One of the students talked about how he was studying at Bethany, but he was working with one of the local churches and doing a Bible study, and he began to learn about the people. These are the same kinds of lessons I heard him saying that I learned when I was in the barrios of New York, walking through the corridors of D.C. or in Los Angeles, and that world-class experience is happening right here in Richmond, Indiana, because of thoughts and ideas. People are people, and boy, I tell you, it's just brilliant. And sometimes it gets me fooled because I'm like, wow, this is happening in my community. And how long has Bethany been in? It's been 22 years?
It's been 30 years. We're celebrating our 30th anniversary here. We started in 1905, but 30 years in Richmond. So this is our home. Much like you coming home, this is our home. And we always want the best for our home. And that's something we share.
Right. And I'd said, we were talking earlier, so at their event, at Bethany's event, I just said to my brother president, I said, listen, I've been to New York, I've been to Beverly Hills, I've seen it done 5-star and all that, and it was as good of an event as I've seen, standing there with Bill Clinton, standing there, we used to work with a congressman. I've seen it done at the highest level, and to know that that's going on in my community and only being back 60 days, it just, to me, says, you know what, Ken? You came back to the right place. You came from the right place. You came back to the right place. And so we're in partnership. And so what one of us does, we all do. And thank you for such a wonderful event. And I would say to anybody who's listening, if you haven't visited Bethany Seminary, I'm telling you, it's someplace to visit. But all of our higher education outlets here in town are more. And the last thing I would say is Indiana University is a world-known brand. Mm-hmm. But it is far more than just the brand of Indiana University. It's the people. Bethany Seminary may not be known by everybody, but Bethany is famous in this community. It's famous throughout the world. And when I sat at that dinner and talked to a man who was here in Richmond from Africa, teaching at Bethany Seminary, met another gentleman on the board from Virginia. Again, when we talk about economic drivers, when we talk about intellectual contributions, we think these are all coming to our community. And I think the biggest hope and aspiration we have as educators is that more and more people will come and take part, but even if you're not formally pursuing education, that you know that we're a part of you, we're a part of each other. We are Richmond, we are Wayne County, we are East Central Indiana, and we are education, and we're here to work with you to help you and to inspire you.
I'm just going to go home. I'm going to let you two talk for the rest of it. You're watching the In Focus Election Special at Whitewater Community Television, WGTV Channel 11, streaming live on Facebook. We're spending some time with Ken Chrisman, Vice Chancellor of External Affairs for Indiana University East, and we are also joined by Jeff Carter, Bethany Theological Seminary, and I'm going to keep you here.
Okay.
And we're going to just kind of spend a little time talking about Bethany. That is a name that everybody may not know where it is. You have spent the last number of years that I've known making that name and that history more known. But for those who maybe have just moved to this community in the last 6 months, 8 months, and again, we know people in and out. We've got a couple of new hires on this campus. Talk a little bit about Bethany, its history being here, and you being here.
Well, and we share a commitment to service.
Absolutely.
And I'll answer your question in a minute. I just want to go back to Ken and say, what I appreciate about IU East is that my daughter, when she graduated and went off to college, she went to Virginia, and after the first year decided to come home. And we said, as you come home, we want you to continue your education. We want you to maintain your fitness. She was a runner, and maintain some spiritual health. And so she put all three of those pieces in play, and part of it was coming here to IU East. And she's a marathon runner, and someone, right, this is where individuals matter to IU East. And you think of big IU as this big university. And individuals matter here at IU East.
Yes.
Someone knew she ran her first marathon. They tapped her on the shoulder and they said, "We've never had a student from IU East run the marathon in NAIA for IU East." And they asked her if she'd run. She said yes. She made it to nationals. She ran in Sacramento this past fall for IU East, the first student to do so. And you sent a whole team with her of folks to surround her coach and others.
Yes.
And in the amount that you invested in just my daughter speaks to that commitment of belonging, and that everyone is not only seen, but they're known. And so just let me express as a dad my gratitude for IU East as an institution, but also for your focus on education and the individual. So I can talk about Bethany now. I just want
Thank you. Your daughter's wonderful. We gave her a new name today, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right.
She's absolutely wonderful.
So Bethany's, it was founded in 1905 in Chicago, and we've had a number of different campuses, mostly focused in Chicago, but education changed. And for the seminary, we had a large campus there in the suburbs of Chicago. We really couldn't maintain it. Many institutions are going through that now, but we did it early. And so we moved and partnered with Earlham School of Religion at Earlham College, moved a house literally out of the way and built a new building. And we've been there on the corner of Earlham's campus for the last 30 years. And I came 11 years ago, and as I was moving around the community, met you, Eric, a lot of folks just didn't know about Bethany. And I thought, we need to raise the profile of the school. And I often refer to it as a donut, like a donut has a hole in the middle. And those that are on the East Coast and the West Coast know about Bethany. Those in our denomination know about Bethany, but the folks closest to us didn't. And in my mind, it's always better to serve and then ask, right? You ask to be recognized, but first you got to serve. And so we just doubled down on service to the community. How can we serve? Where can we serve? What can we do? And moved out into the community, finding organizations of similar quality, like the Richmond Symphony Orchestra and others, and started partnering as well as expanding our enrollment. And so over the last 10 years, we've taken total student debt from over $330,000 down to $25,000. So we're making education affordable. We've doubled the size of our student body. We've taken houses that are around Bethany. We've purchased them and then flipped them and given them to our students for housing. Well, that had a real positive effect because not only the houses we cleaned up, but the houses around us also cleaned up, the alleyways where you'll find, maybe some glass or trash or graffiti, all of that cleaned up. And now you can stand in the alleyway and look, and for as far as the eye can see, there's no trash, no yard debris, no glass, no graffiti. And so to Gladwell's point, there's a tipping point, right? And the neighborhood then was enhanced. And so that's been the thought. How do we continue to give back, which is core to our values and our understanding of who we're called to be, right? We're servants. And the image for me comes out of Jeremiah in that we should seek the peace and prosperity of the city, for if the city prospers, you too will prosper. And so service is all about seeing the peace and prosperity of the county and the region, and in the peace and prosperity of our region, so Bethany will find growth. And we found that. So it's an exciting place to be. These partnerships and thinking about how then do our students participate in a similar mission, and how do we participate together as educational institutions, that's just kicking things up the next level, right? how can we work together and think about this is a knowledge town, right? This is an economic mover, education in Richmond, Wayne County. It's a place where students are hopefully engaged in such a way that they might stay here. For those that come in, like at Earlham College, that they might stay here, like you, right?
Come back.
Engage, come back, and really think about this as a home, not only to be educated, but also to serve. And Bethany's been part of that conversation.
And, I was just sitting here, and I continue to think about, what Bethany does in such a unique way. So many colleges and university leaders struggle with cost, affordability, and loan-to-debt ratio. So talk to us a little bit about how you envision where you started when you got here, and then how you've gotten to this point, because obviously that was not what it was when you arrived, and it's taken a pretty rigorous process to get the investment needed to see your students in a place that they're able to pretty much go debt-free.
And they can go debt-free. What we notice, and that for so many individuals, they graduate from college or university with a lot of debt, and it's part of the national debate, right? We have a debt crisis. We realize that with graduate level education, if a student coming in has the average debt of about $35,000 to $37,000, and they added a single penny of debt in graduate school, and they were going into a service profession to be a pastor or a leader of a nonprofit, social worker, often if they added debt, then they priced themselves out of the market. Right. And so there became a barrier between someone knowing their passion and then actually following it or fulfilling it. And so with the help of a Lilly grant, and Lilly grants are incredibly helpful, particularly in the state of Indiana, we started to chip away at how do you reduce debt. And we looked at tuition, and we lowered tuition and added more scholarship. But it was really about students taking out loans for life expenses, not necessarily educational expenses. And so then we started looking at housing, and that's when we bought houses and flipped them using volunteer labor, and then gave them as low rent, and then we lowered the rent, and then lowered the rent until we gave them away no rent. And we kept on working at all of the expenses a student might have until we found zero. And great guy in my office, he would work on this grant, and he'd come back and he'd say, Jeff, we're really close. We're within $10,000. And I would say, it's not low enough. And he'd say, okay, we're within $5,000. It's not low enough. He'd say 25. And I said, Courtney, don't come back until we hit zero. And he came back one day and he said, we found zero. And so freeing a student of that economic burden so that they can follow wherever, as I would say, God might call or their passions lead, is a huge plus for educational attainment. Because retention, it's not just getting folks in the door, it's keeping them there. And retention, belonging, economic stability, those are important keys to then having a student graduate and celebrate a week and a weekend like we're going to have this week.
It makes me think as an educator, in purely a way.
Just so you know, I'm going to cut you all off after this because we have another guest that we
have
to get to.
Real quick.
But go.
No, real quick question is, what you must have some moments when you hear other administrators talk about a nonprofit entity, but yet we're making profit. Have you seen any new ministries or new births or new ideas that have been freed up or new opportunities because your students aren't saddled with that debt?
So a great example, we have a student that graduated and she went out to the West Coast. It's a little more expensive to live there than here in Wayne County, and wanted to pursue a nonprofit feeding the homeless. And they created a community garden, and then they will harvest from that community garden and then set a table once a week and invite homeless folks in to feed them. And then she started another ministry outside of that. She couldn't have done that if she was carrying all this debt. So salary was not the top consideration when she moved out on the West Coast. It was, what do I want to do and what difference can I make to this community? And she had eyes to see the need. So it wasn't as if she was saying, well, I'm going to do A, B, and C. She went and she said, what are the needs of this community and how can I use my gifts in meeting those needs? Now, obviously, the salary is a part of that, but it wasn't the first question, how much money am I going to make? It is, what difference can I make?
Mission and service.
Right? It's about mission. And I think anytime we double down on mission and keep mission really at our focus. Some of these ancillary issues, as important as they are, I think they start to kind of blend away because mission will often produce for us peace and prosperity.
Absolutely.
Right?
Wonderful.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Ken Chrisman, Vice Chancellor of External Affairs for Indiana University East. Appreciate you spending this time with us. I know I told you I'd get you out of here in 15, but hung you around for a little while. Jen, thanks to Chad Bolzer from Ivy Tech for joining us here this evening. Appreciate the time.
Oh, appreciate being here. It is a great time of year to be on college campuses. This is really special to watch folks. If I would just say, if you've never been to a nurse's pinning, we do that right before, in the morning before our ceremony. But anytime, if you've been around in the nursing program and what those students go through in terms of their education, it's a very intense program for lots of good reasons.
Yes.
And that pinning ceremony is really one of the great ceremonies that I've ever been a part of. We get to do it twice a year, and it's a special time. So I was kind of enjoying talking to a few of the folks coming up.
Nice. I had a chance recently to meet a couple of the graduates from the Ivy Tech nursing program recently, so I know you got to be happy about them. And you've got a commencement coming up on Saturday.
We do, and our nursing program will graduate more students than they've ever graduated before in our program. We've grown about 30% over the past 3 years on this campus and those statewide. And so we do have a commencement that it's really a great day. Over 1,000 credentials would be awarded on that day, including lots of high school folks who will earn their credential before they graduate high school and walk across that stage. And they'll have a college completion. Hopefully, they will use it to move on, but maybe they will use it to go directly into the workforce. It's one of the really exciting, I think, developments in higher education and certainly with the community college.
And I was going to say, talk a little bit about how that has developed and how those numbers have grown, because they have continued to go up every year.
Well, I think it's a confluence of events, right? You have a pandemic that really changed the dynamic for so many high school students, middle school students. There was a desire and a necessity, and we've always been working in the high school space, but as we saw that college number reduced in the state of Indiana, there was a 10% drop in 2020. It gets everybody a little bit nervous. I think you can see the state organization in a desire to ensure that we create talent, we retain talent, we keep it here, both in this area and around the state. We have a great audience, and we have the dual credit program, dual enroll program, where a student can take a high school course and a college course simultaneously. Lots of really smart things. And instead of just doing the one-offs, which I think we did a lot of that a while back in our process of getting there, we're really focused on those short-term credentials. Not surprisingly, the state of Indiana, and this is, by the way, for a show, another additional show at some point, with the new graduation requirements to the high school and those diplomas that are going to come out for seventh graders, this is marrying right into the philosophy of what this state is looking for in terms of talent development.
When you talk about high school students, you all are offering some courses this summer for high school students. And did I see the word free?
Yeah, so it's free, and it's not like, we don't say like free and let me tell you all the asterisks by it. It was started 3 years ago. It's we have really fantastic leadership. Dr. Sue Elshman, our president, really felt like we needed to do our part along with crossing the finish line, which was a little bit of a state program. That we did our part, and so yes, any high school student that wants to take a class, it is not with take a class and you have to go to Ivy Tech in the fall, take a class and you got to fill out this, take a class and if we cross our fingers, maybe you'll get it free. It is free summer, and it's been a wildly successful program in a lot of ways in the summer, but I think this is the third year and really has been gaining steam for a long period of time.
What are you finding the detriment for students to get there? Is transportation still an issue?
Yeah, I think transportation is an issue, but I would argue that one of the things that the pandemic really elevated was our necessity to provide lots of technology and options. We have online options. You have you have different asynchronous options, and so yes, the barriers. There's certainly a little bit financial. There's a little bit transportation. There's a little bit of life circumstances, and and the workforce is are lots of opportunities within the workforce. So I think it's reasonable to say that an 18-year-old might walk out of high school and decide to enter the workforce or decide to go there. And then hopefully at some point they would come back in that. But we're hoping to prime that pump with our high school program.
The higher ed right now faces a lot of headwinds, and Ivy Tech is checking some boxes, right? Affordability, accessibility, starting early so that a student can kind of taste higher ed while they're still matriculating through, and therefore it's not as daunting. A lot of it, though, the conversation focuses on workforce development. Yeah. Where are you finding the connection with between Ivy Tech's mission and program with the needs of workforce development? Because I'll throw in here, Indiana ranks at the bottom on higher ed attainment. Yes. And so we're both in the business of trying to raise that number, but where do you see that connection where education meets then the needs of the workforce?
Yeah, I think there's three really specific buckets. I think number one in our academic programs, and you've seen this, we are absolutely trying to get shorter term credentials, make it easier for the student to earn something on a quick timeline. It's an affordability, and it connects to something else that we would love for it to be an associate's, a bachelor's, and beyond. However, getting that credential is the best. It's the best way for that to be possible to move to the next. Having someone that is accessing higher ed and a potential workforce contributor just to hopefully cross our fingers, make it through the process. We don't want to do that. We want some rewards early on in the deal. I think the second thing is exactly what we talked about in the high school, not just doing random acts of dual credit, but to credential completion. And every time somebody asks, well, I can't believe, why are you spending so much time in the high school? Every time we talk about degree attainment in ours and workforce development, every time Val Schaefer goes out to make that pitch for investment in our community, those numbers go towards lifting that number and moving on that trajectory. And then I think the third bucket is very simple. We have at the community college level, this is a statewide thing because I'm most familiar, but it's probably nationwide. We've always said these are our products. It's just like any other business. These are our products. The reality is the marketplace is not saying, hey, you know what? You've got 10 cool products. They're saying, look, I'm interested in my workers and how to grow them and retain them. I want to create our product. And so we have listened, I think, very well across the state and locally to work with industry partners to develop the things that are specific for that industry. And as a result, and we are, Dr. Sue Elsmerman is very metric driven for Ivy Tech Community College, and we learn very well that that's where we need to be. And that's a place that we've grown in double digits for 2 years straight in that skills training. And interestingly enough, Lilly has just given the statewide, the community college system a grant to really even grow that pot bigger, because we know that that's an area. So those are our three buckets that really move the needle in that area.
What we're finding is with micro-credentials, whether they're badges, which are really small for a task, or a small certificate, students will say, well, I finished one, let me have another, and they start stacking them, and before long you can say, hey, you only need to take this many more classes and you'll have your undergrad, or you'll have, and so I think that's one way we can move the needle when it comes to attainment.
Yeah, and the marketplace is demanding that, right? We can pretend that that's not how folks will learn. If I know that if I'm going to go out and let's say I'm going to bake a cake, and I had never baked before, rarely do folks access culinary programs. what they do is they get on on their phone or their device and they look it up, and so they go quickly into that learning process. My two daughters do that all the time. That's, it's instantaneous, and it's instantaneous in terms of recognition. The badging process, the micro-credentialing, getting folks to earn certain things. People can say, well, you're gamifying things, and there's some critics on that stuff, and I get it, but we are addressing a marketplace that we have to. This isn't optional for us, right? This isn't something we can go, well, gosh, if we cross our fingers and maybe this will work out in a decade from now. We have a few years for us to really make that turn. Indiana's, as there are low in educational attainment, they're really high in terms of investment, and investment over the last 3 years. You've seen that in Wayne County, you've seen that in this region. We have to have the workforce addressed. And I think the great news is we're all speaking the same language, whether it's Bethany, whether it's Ivy Tech, IU East, Erlen, everybody's speaking the same language. We have to raise our workforce.
We started this conversation with the nurses' penning ceremony.
Yes.
One of the last times I saw you, I was in your office, and you were talking about giving up your office and doing a renovation for your nursing department. Did you find a new office?
Let me just say, this has been a win-win-win. The old in the office, win-win-win. Okay, so yes, the nurses faculty said, hey, we'd like to expand our simulation area if we're going to grow the way we want to, and we've had record growth in that area. We're going to have better simulation space. Guess where it should be? Right here. I was like, my office? And they were like, yeah, let's just clear out this entire suite. So what are you going to say to really smart faculty that you want to grow the program? So we have renovated the second floor. We've got lots of really good, cool partnerships with Reed, and some of the EMT is developing there. With Farm Tech, we're bringing back. That whole entire second floor will be dedicated to our healthcare program. We will have the best simulation space, I believe, in the state of Indiana. It'll be the most up to date, and that's why we consistently have 95 to 97, above 90%. The NCLEX pass rate is always in the 90s for us, and that's a pretty amazing statistic. But it's because of the intensity of our simulation space. We also were able to make a couple offices and renovate a few areas, and we've still got we got some phase 2 things to go. The really nice part about it is it has been a self-funded project. We've done it we've reinvested from some of the surpluses that we had on campus to reinvest in ours. We haven't asked for more state money or went through a capital project or anything like that. Now, we'll eventually ask, several people, maybe around this table, for money.
No.
But the reality is this, and we think it's our way of saying to the community, this is a direct, we want to affect and change the workforce, especially in healthcare. And there are lots of really cool opportunities going around in our area.
Can't give you money, but I'll always give you time.
There you go. That's a much better gift, Eric. A much better gift.
Chad Bolzer, Ivy Tech. I appreciate you taking some time and joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
you, for sure.
We have a guest with us from Earlham School of Religion, and I'm going to turn this over to Jeff Carter.
Thanks, Eric. With me is the Dean of Earlham School of Religion, Gretchen Castle, and Gretchen's lived all over the world and now makes her home here in Wayne County, in Richmond, as you lead the Earlham School of Religion.
Yeah.
Earlham is a familiar word, right? So Earlham College is often associated to Earlham, but Earlham is much larger, and a piece of it is Earlham School of Religion, and you are the same but different.
Yep.
As we begin, what's Earlham School of Religion, and how is it related to Earlham College?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. It's really good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it's Earlham School of Religion is what we call an embedded seminary. So we are part of Earlham College. We're integrated with Earlham in many ways. We're also independent in some ways. And because we're a graduate program, not an undergraduate program, as most of Earlham is. So we enjoy the benefits of working with Earlham and being part of Earlham, and we enjoy some identity that's our own as well. Yeah, as a seminary.
And so you have your own faculty and your own program, and it is a graduate school.
Yeah.
But you'll share a stage at commencement this Saturday
This
on Earlham's
Saturday.
campus.
We will. We do. All the Earlham graduates walk through. You go across the stage first, and then at the end are the 2 graduate programs that Earlham has, the GPE, which is Graduate Programs in Education, and Earlham School of Religion.
And when you talk about an Earlham School of Religion, I think folks immediately assume, so you're graduating pastors. Is that what a school of religion does? They think of that about Bethany Seminary, which is a partner school with Earlham School of Religion.
Yeah.
So who goes to Earlham School of Religion and who graduates from Earlham School of Religion?
Yeah.
What do they do?
Yeah, good. Thanks for that question. Well, about half of our students are actually Quaker, and so we're a Quaker seminary also. That's our denomination. But half are not. And about 70% of our students go to school online. So they're distance learners, and that allows people who have full lives and families, they don't all have to move to Richmond. Some do, and they spend some of their learning, some of their time in the program in Richmond at Earlham School of Religion. But you might think we'd have we're mostly training congregational pastors. Some do pursue that. The majority do not, but they come to ESR out of a great curiosity and a great need to live their lives and have an impact in the world from a theological and a religious place. So it's remarkable to me how might I say it? There's a thread that a person might be holding in their life. And it's a religious thread that never leaves them. It's always with them. And so they think, I want to learn more about what this thread is and what my life of faith means to me. It's important to me, and how do I really understand it better? So a lot of people come to seminary to understand that better, do a deep dive in spiritual formation. Sometimes we talk about they're letting go of what they've learned or know. It's not like they're leaving their religion, but they're letting go of some of what they've learned so that they can relearn and re-explore, through studying the Bible, studying Hebrew, studying peace and social justice issues. A lot of our students who want to pursue ministry, they might become chaplains and serve people really very directly. They might run nonprofit organizations. They might end up being community organizers. They might do peace work. They might do climate justice work.
And they might write. One of your strongest programs is the Ministry of Writing.
Yes.
So what's that about? That doesn't necessarily scream, congregational ministry or nonprofit to just sit and write. What's that about?
Yeah, and we share that with Bethany too.
We do.
We're lucky. We're so lucky to have the partnership we have with Bethany. They agree.
Yeah, everyone agrees that it's a good partnership. So what is the Ministry of Writing?
Yeah.
And how does writing fit into Earlham School of Religion?
It's called Theopoetics and Writing. And theopoetics is really just that. Writing might be poetry, could be all ways of expressing oneself. But it's our most popular, program at the moment. And I think probably maybe for Bethany as well. People just want to write, but with a depth, with a religious and theological depth. And so I'll tell you, Marcus Borg.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Borg, a famous theologian who I've heard speak many times, he died a couple years ago, and his widow is a student at ESR studying theopoetics. She's an Episcopal priest herself, but she's very interested in learning more about. She writes and she does blogging and so on, but she really just wants to take that further and deepen it in her religious life. So it's not just writing, but it's
going deep.
It's really going deep.
And you think in a world filled with social media and 24 hour news cycles, we get such a thin kind of veneer
Yes.
often on topics and relationships. And at ESR, and I would say at Bethany as well, there's this invitation to go deep. Because I think everyone searches for greater meaning, greater depth, greater purpose, and greater belonging.
Yes.
And that's part of what it means to be a seminary. I mean, a seminary literally means a seedbed.
Yeah.
And so I think the relational component is important there. And then also the personal piece.
It's huge. It's huge. And I have to say, you probably see this, Jeff, but, you watch a student through 3 years of their getting an MDiv, and you watch them grow and change in those 3 years. It's remarkable because they too learn a depth. And I think that's a lot of why they come to seminary, because they want to bring that to the world. They feel, I would say, a real sense of calling to make the world a better place. And what better way to do that than to study in a seminary and to really deepen your thinking.
Well, at Bethany, we would say so the world flourishes. I mean, we want to see some product there. We want to make a difference. All of us want to make a difference. Now you mentioned two interesting words: peace and justice. For you, it's rooted in a particular tradition and then is expressed in a particular way.
Yes.
So for you at ESR, what's the interplay, and what do these two terms mean for you, peace and justice?
Yeah. And I'll say, as with the Church of the Brethren and Mennonites, Quakers also are historic peace churches. We share that, which means for a long time we've been working for peace. And I would say, as a Quaker, we never stop that. That's always front in our minds. Creating peace wherever we are, helping to listen better, create conversation that helps people understand each other better. Peace happens just person to person, as well as often, questioning systems and systems that are unjust. And I think especially since COVID, we've just had this huge awakening around colonialism and some of the historic things that we as human beings have done to each other that is very troubling. And Quakers and Church of the Brethren, we've been at that for a long time. It'd be great if that was a problem that would go away, but
Well, when you think about this area, Earlham was founded in 1847.
Yeah.
And in the fingerprints of the Religious Society of Friends and Earlham School of Religion are not just, around the campus or at the corner where we reside. It really is throughout the community.
it is.
Those values kind of permeating society, which has always been part of the goal, right? How do we have an influence on the world around us?
Always. I mean, Levi Coffin House. It's
Exactly.
Yeah, there are a lot of footprints, and just the people who founded the Earlham School of Religion. I met a woman just today whose grandfather was one of the founders, one of the people involved in getting ESR together. My father was involved. He was then pastor at First Friends Church, and was, active in saying we really need a seminary, a Quaker seminary, where we can train people. And then they would have said probably for congregational ministry. And we just have such a broader view of that.
Far more opportunity. I like to think about it. We have many more opportunities now, right? Lots of opportunities. So we were talking to Ken Chrisman earlier about him coming back to the community after being away for a number of years. You just mentioned your dad. You yourself are an Earlham grad,
Yes.
right? And so you have come back to this community after being away and literally living throughout the world. And you've come back. So as you've come back to Richmond, and we're right on the precipice of incredible possibility and change with the investment partly through the Lilly Grant in Earlham,
Yes.
but then also this kind of season of collaboration.
Yeah.
What are you coming back to that you look out and say, that is so familiar, just like when I left? And what are you coming back to that you say, boy, that's dramatically different?
Yeah, interesting. That's a great question, Jeff. And I want to come back to how we met, but I'll come back to that. Yeah, it's just such a great blessing to be in Richmond and to be back, to be preaching from the pulpit that my father preached from, that I remember as a young child. That's remarkable, and we're very much a part of First Friends Church and love that. Just it's really very special. Richmond, the town, it's heartbreaking sometimes to see some of the houses. I want to go buy every other house and renovate it. That's my.
You can. I mean, we'll let you do that.
I'd love to.
Right.
Yeah, if I only had time. But yeah, it's so I'm delighted with the Lilly grant. I mean, that is so transformational and will be so great for Richmond. So it makes me just feel really, really happy and grateful that opportunity really is very
revitalization.
alive and well.
Yeah, it's always about revitalization. It's part of our faith story too. So where did we meet? So where did we meet?
Yeah, so you and I met in Geneva, Switzerland, when I sat down at a table for lunch at the World Council of Churches, right?
Yep.
And we met each other, and I took your card, and I still have that card. I probably have gotten a couple others since then, but it was so great to come to Bethany and to come to ESR, and there you are. And it's like, oh my goodness, we did work together there.
Now there was a third person at that meeting. It was a big meeting, and there was a third person who's not with us. And do you remember?
What's that?
It was Pope Francis. It was Pope Francis. So we were there together with Pope Francis and a delegation, and we were at meetings together and sat down. And it was just it was such a neat moment. And I often, if you ask my kids, they'll say, "What's Dad's phrase?" Never underestimate the power of a relationship. And you never know when things will come back around. And here enough, we met each other across the sea, and now we're working together in Richmond, Indiana. So it's a real blessing. Thanks so much for being here and sharing in this conversation. We're going to welcome Eric back as he continues to moderate. It is a fascinating time, not only in higher ed with the challenges we face, but the opportunities. And you made comment about how things have changed so much. It's a theme with every individual that has sat in this chair tonight, is that the headwinds are as stiff as they've ever been with higher ed. And even the value proposition of higher ed is being questioned. And yet the opportunities for investment and change and transformation is incredible. And often it begins, we're just talking about relationship with each person's individual life and how the call that's within them, and how educators, mentors, friends, family call those gifts out and then are able to employ them for a greater good. It's a theme again and again and again. I think that's a challenge for us as educators. How do we, in the midst of these stiff winds of change, maintain the focus and mission on the transformation of lives so that communities like ours can be transformed?
And again, how lucky we are to all be in one community. Richmond is rich. Richmond.
It is very rich.
Hi, Eric.
Hi there. Gretchen, thank you for spending this part of this evening with me. Greatly appreciate it.